Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take your source material, all the research, the articles, the surprising facts, and really pull out the core knowledge you need.
Exactly.
And today, our mission is to venture into one of the least seen but most fascinating parts of a huge global institution, the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg.
Hmm.
We're diving deep into the Hermitage's Department of Drawings. Specifically, we're looking at their Western European collection and really zeroing in on German Renaissance masters.
And also the painstaking scientific work, the detective story behind attributing these really fragile works, often centuries after they were made.
So where are we exactly?
Well, we are, in essence, asking you to join us inside what they call the Holy of Holies.
Okay.
When you visit the Hermitage, you see the grand galleries, right? But the Department of Drawings isn't a gallery at all. It's the Cabinet of Drawings.
Right.
It's basically a highly controlled storage area, tucked away on the mezzanine level of the 12-column hall in the new Hermitage, completely off limits to the public.
And that, of course, is the key reason why this collection is, well, a secret to most visitors. Graphics, works on paper, sketches, ink drawings, they're extraordinarily sensitive to light.
Oh, incredibly. They're like chemical time bombs, just waiting for UV rays.
So they have to be kept safe in darkness and only brought out for, very short periods during temporary exhibitions.
Exactly. Shortest possible time. But even though it's hidden, this division is absolutely fundamental. It's a foundational part of the entire museum's history.
It's important to grasp, isn't it, how drawings were viewed historically, compared to, say, a big oil painting or a marble sculpture.
Yeah, that's crucial. For centuries, drawings really weren't considered finished products, or even, collectible art meant for display.
So what were they then?
They were seen as the internal product of the artist's creative activity. Basically, preparatory sketches, studies of a hand or a face, maybe technical notes passed around a workshop.
Right, stuff for the artist's studio, not the collector's wall.
Exactly. They belonged in the artist's laboratory, not framed in a fancy salon.
But the sources show this attitude just completely flips, especially among the aristocracy in Europe.
It really does.
By the late 18th century, suddenly collecting these working documents becomes a sign of real sophistication, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It moves beyond just artists collecting other artists' work. Becomes this necessary trend for the elite collectors in places like Paris, London, Amsterdam.
You had to have drawings if you were serious.
Precisely. And Catherine the Great, who was always, deeply tuned into European high culture, she wasn't going to miss out.
Oh, okay.
So the Hermitage Drawing Collection was formally founded in 1768. That's just 4 years after she started the main picture gallery in 1764.
She moved fast.
She did. Catherine recognized that if she wanted to be counted among Europe's really refined collectors, she absolutely needed drawings. It was part of the package.
But here's the ironic part, isn't it? According to the documents, she acquired them more for status than for love of the art form itself.
That's what the sources suggest, yes.
Yeah.
Apparently she wasn't personally that fond of them.
Didn't she call them something like scribbles without plot, meaning, or purpose?
That's the reported quote, yes. Which is pretty dismissive.
So if she disliked them, was the whole thing driven purely by, keeping up with the Joneses of European collecting political status?
Oh, almost certainly. It was about completeness, sophistication. She had to have the full set,
Makes sense.
So the foundational purchase happened right away. That first year, 1768, she acquired this enormous collection of Western European drawings. We're talking around 4,000 sheets.
Wow.
All from Count Karl Cobenzl. He was an Austrian diplomat stationed in Brussels.
And this fits Catherine's pattern, right? She didn't really have the time to carefully collect piece by piece over decades.
Not at all.
She bought ready-made museums, just boom, entire massive collections to instantly boost the Hermitage's reputation.
Exactly her style. And the Cobenzl collection, it had this really stunning, very unique presentation.
Oh.
Cobenzl, being more of an amateur dilettante collector, he standardized everything, probably just for his own ease of display and storage. All 4,000 drawings were pasted onto these lilac-colored passe-partout. The Mount boards.
Feels like that's distinctive.
Very. And they came in 5 distinct standardized formats. Imagine a sea of uniform lilac backgrounds.
Oh, okay.
And they were even furnished with these engraved cartouches, little decorative frames around the label space where the artist's name was written in, if it was known.
That's quite elaborate.
And maybe the most charming detail. The whole collection arrived in specially designed storage boxes, shaped and sized exactly like library volumes.
Like books, so you could put them on a shelf.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like a library of drawings. Some of those original boxes still exist, apparently.
That packaging is fascinating, suggesting they're volumes of knowledge. But okay, the standardization and the sheer scale, that came at a cost, didn't it? Cobenzl was a diplomat, not an art historian.
Exactly. He was a dilettante. So the initial catalog, the list that came with the collection, was just riddled with, let's say, optimistic and often completely wrong attributions.
So the real work started after they arrived.
Precisely. The challenge for Hermitage scholars, which honestly continues right up to today, has been sorting the wheat from the chaff, separating the masterpieces from the misattributions.
Okay, so let's look at an example. You mentioned there were some correctly identified gems in that first batch.
Yes, a few crucial ones. One of the most valuable sheets, correctly identified right from the start in the Cobenzl acquisition, is an early drawing by Albrecht Dürer. It's titled A Sitting Young Man.
Okay, Dürer, let's unpack this one. It's described as a highly functional drawing. What does that tell us about, say, the reality of a German Renaissance studio that a finished painting might hide?
Well, its function is immediately obvious when you look closely. It's a preparatory study.
For what?
For Dürer's much more complex engraving, The Son of Justice. The drawing is like a snapshot of the setup in the studio.
How can you tell?
Well, look at the sitter, just a young man. He doesn't have any of the final allegorical symbol. There's no sword, no scales and justice.
Okay.
And he's sitting on just a plain wooden bench, not the lion that the figure sits on in the final print.
Right, stripping away the symbolism, and you can almost see the practical side of getting a model to hold a difficult pose.
Exactly. Look at the sitter's extended arm, the one that will eventually hold the sword in the engraving.
Yeah.
In the drawing, that arm is clearly resting on a simple wooden pole placed on the ground.
Ah, a prop.
Just a necessary technical support. It let the model hold that challenging position long enough for Dürer to capture the details he needed. It really grounds the later masterpiece in real working studio moment practicalities.
So Dürer wasn't worried about getting a perfect likeness of the face here or nailing every anatomical detail. He was focused on something else.
He was focused purely on developing the plastic motifs, as the art historians say, meaning the shape, the volume, the three-dimensionality of the forms in space, and specifically, the drapery.
The clothes.
Yes. The infinitely varied folds of the clothing were, according to the analysis, the most captivating part for Dürer in this study.
You can see that focus.
He uses black ink, really fine point, creating these soft, almost air-filled volumes with dense cross-hatching. And it's so successful that entire section, the pose, the clothing, it gets transferred almost completely, virtually unchanged into the final, highly detailed engraving.
Okay, so the Dürer represents a known quantity, right? A functional study correctly identified early on, valued for its technical mastery.
Exactly.
But the next drawing we should look at is kind of the opposite situation. A large nativity scene that came into the collection, completely anonymous, no name attached in the 18th century.
Right.
And this sheet really illustrates that constant, ongoing, sometimes quite contentious scientific work of attribution that happens behind the scenes in the cabinet of drawings.
This is a really stunning piece. It's a large fourth format work, early 16th century. And its iconography, the subject matter, is very specific.
How so?
It follows the revelation of St. Bridget. She was a 14th century Swedish nun, and her mystical vision became the basis for this whole tradition of night nativity scenes across Europe.
Right, I've seen those. What's a key visual element from St. Bridget's vision that defines these?
The key thing is the light source. The whole scene is bathed in this mystical, divine light that radiates only from the newborn Christ child himself.
Okay.
And this divine light is so powerful, so overwhelming, it completely cancels out the light from Joseph's little candle that he's holding nearby.
That's a strong visual. How did the artist achieve that effect?
Oh, it's superb technical skill. The artist used pen and black ink, but on paper that was deliberately toned, stained, really to a kind of brownish gray base color.
So starting dark?
Exactly. And over this dark ground, they meticulously applied these brilliant white highlights, probably gouache or body color. And that's what creates that soft, silvery internal glow of the divine light. It's an outstanding piece of graphic technique.
Amazing. So here's where the detective story comes in, the deep dive into the archives. Who actually created this stunning but initially anonymous piece?
Well, for decades, it was just a mystery, unknown master. Then, in 1936, a Hermitage specialist, Mikhail V. Dobrklonsky, published it. He attributed it to Barthel Bruin the Elder, who was a known artist from Cologne.
Okay, an attribution. Progress.
But then just 1 year later, in 1937, the legendary, incredibly influential art historian Max Friedlander weighed in.
The Max Friedlander. Wow. What did he say?
Friedlander supported Dobroklanski's attribution for who drew it. He agreed it was Bruin's hand. But he claimed the composition, the design itself, was masterminded by a different artist entirely, Joost van Kelkar.
Okay.
And here's the twist. Friedlander placed Joost van Kelkar firmly within the Netherlandish school, specifically Haarlem.
Netherlandish, so Dutch or Flemish, not German.
Correct. And a claim from someone of Friedlander's stature, back then that would have been considered pretty much absolute gospel for generations.
But as you know, and as we often find in these deep dives, truth in art history can be, well, fluid.
Oh, absolutely. Subsequent research, digging through archives, eventually proved Friedlander was actually mistaken.
No way.
It seems he'd confused two different artists who had similar names or maybe worked in a similar style. The evidence showed Joost van Kelkar was not Netherlandish. He was actually a German artist from Cologne.
From Cologne. Same place as Bruin the Elder, then.
Yes, part of Lower Rhine School. So this simple error, made by an absolute giant in the field, completely shifted the drawing's identity, its context, its national school, from Netherlandish back to German.
That is just the beauty and maybe the terror of research, isn't it? One document, one new piece of evidence can overturn decades of accepted wisdom.
It really can.
So if this drawing isn't just a quick sketch, it's too big and detailed for that, but it also feels too free, too improvisational maybe, to be just a straightforward copy of something else. What was its function?
Well, historians eventually landed on a pretty compelling hypothesis based on the drawing's scale and detail and other known facts.
Which are?
Okay, so the master artist, Joost van Kelkar, received a major commission around 1512. It was for a huge altarpiece, like 2 meters high, for a church in Marienbaum, Germany. But critically, the records show Van Kelkar himself didn't travel to Marienbaum to paint it on site.
Ah, so he wasn't there to oversee it.
Right. So the hypothesis goes like this. Van Kelkar created this large, highly detailed master drawing this nativity we're talking about essentially as a comprehensive set of instructions.
Instructions for who?
For his young apprentice, who also happened to be his future son-in-law, Barthel Brun. The same artist, Dobroklanski, and Friedlander identified as the draftsman.
Wow.
So Brun was meant to take this incredibly detailed drawing and faithfully execute the large-scale painting in Marienbaum, using this drawing as the perfect, non-negotiable template provided by the master who stayed behind in Cologne.
That's incredible. Like a master composition created remotely. A blueprint passed between master and apprentice hundreds of miles apart, basically saying, paint this exactly like this.
That's the idea, a fascinating possibility.
But that large format, while necessary for the detail, also made the drawing really vulnerable to damage over the centuries, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The physical history of this Van Kelkar sheet is pretty dramatic in itself. At some point, probably during the turbulent 17th or 18th century, it was torn into several fragments.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but before Count Cobenzl acquired it, so sometime in the 18th century, an anonymous restorer gathered up the pieces. They glued them all down onto a thick secondary sheet of paper for support. It's a process called doubling or lining.
Okay, so it was stabilized, safe from being lost, but was the repair accurate?
Well, it saved the fragments, which was crucial. But the alignment wasn't great. If you look at old photographs, you can see that the drawn lines, the contours like around the Madonna's hands or the infant's torso, they didn't quite match up across the tiers. The restorer had probably just matched the torn edges visually as best they could without maybe fully understanding the flow of the composition underneath. Close, but not perfect.
So the drawing became this kind of monument to early restoration practices, but one that really needed a modern intervention to show its true self again.
Precisely. And that modern feat was accomplished by a Hermitage restorer named Yelena Ivanovna Shashkova.
What did she do?
She took on this incredibly difficult technical challenge. She had to carefully, painstakingly separate all those individual, fragile 16th century fragments from that old, brittle 18th century backing paper.
That sounds terrifyingly risky.
Hugely risky. And then, using modern conservation techniques and materials, she precisely realigned the entire composition so all the artistic lines connected perfectly as the artist intended.
Wow.
Given the age, the fragility of the paper, the ink. This was a massive and thankfully successful undertaking. It really demonstrates the crucial role conservation science plays in letting us truly see these masterpieces again.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've looked at two key examples. First, the DUR, a functional technical study correctly identified early on, valued right away for its instructional mastery.
Right. Clear purpose.
And then the Van Kaltar, this complex, beautiful composition whose German identity and its fascinating purpose as a master template took maybe 2 centuries, multiple conflicting expert opinions, and cutting-edge restoration to finally resolve.
Mm-hmm. Two very different journeys. These pieces, despite those contrasting histories, really represent the foundation, the core, of the Hermitage's unique drawing collection.
And it's so important to remember the sheer scale of what we don't know, what remains unstudied.
Absolutely vital. While we focus on these identified masterpieces like Dürer or Van Kalkar, the collection still holds hundreds, maybe thousands, of blindly anonymous sheets.
What do they call those?
In the internal documentation, they're often referred to as the B Fund. These are drawings considered of secondary importance, perhaps, or ones that are heavily misattributed or just completely unidentified.
A vast reservoir.
Exactly. A vast reservoir where future scientific discoveries, future attributions are just waiting to be made.
And that brings us perfectly to our final thought for you to explore on your own. Since we've seen today just how fluid attribution history can be, how it relies on new documents, maybe new technologies, or just fresh eyes. And given that even giants of the field like Max Friedlander could make crucial mistakes that stood for decades, well, what other currently accepted truths in art history might just be waiting for that one overlooked document or that new perspective to be completely overturned?
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
What magnificent, currently anonymous drawing might be sitting quietly right now in one of the Hermitage's anonymous B-Fund boxes, just waiting for someone to finally reveal its true identity, its hidden story, and its proper context?